Titanic part 2. Okay. Right back to it. I did change my shirt because, yes, I looked fat. Alright. I'll admit it. I look fat. I know I did. Okay. So like we were saying. So the world record dive of breathing compressed air is 156 meters. Oh, by the way, this is part 2. If you didn't see the first part, please check it out. I'm not sure what I'm going to name it. Probably Titanic Deets You Don't Know. So, look that up. You darlings. Oh, also, I might as well do this again since I did it before. If you're not subscribed, please get subscribed. If you'd like to support the channel, it's zivamonalisa@gmail.com. Please hit that like button right on the intro. I'd appreciate it. Thank you. Okay, back to it. All right, so breathing compressed air is at 156 meters, which is crazy because at 66 meters, the oxygen level becomes toxic. So a lot of people were like, well, could anybody have lived in one of those passages if it was cut off and they had air bubbles or whatever? And then also because of the way that the I don't want to say the wrong word. The dividers that keep those watertight little capsules of air or whatever, they were compromised due to the stair system. The big staircase that they had to have, they were compromised. So instead of having like so much air, you'd only have like 1 centimeter of air. So even if you did make it and you're up and it's sinking and it's going down, you still wouldn't have made it because it would be impossible to breathe that 1 centimeter of air. And if you could breathe that 1 centimeter of air, it would be compromised air because the oxygen is going to have all the other molecules of all the other destruction going around you. So either way, you're going to die. So don't worry, no one went down with the boat alive. They all good and died already. Don't you worry about a thing. All right. So the key to the cabinet. Gosh darn it. So that key to the cabinet of the binoculars that nobody opened because there was a key missing. Whole boat of really smart, intelligent men. And not one person said, let's just bust that thing up. What are we doing here? Not one person said that as important as having binoculars is. And I gotta say, I didn't even realize that they didn't have binoculars until like recently. I don't know if I just watched a Titanic movie or something and didn't realize, but just so nuts to me. So nuts. It sold for $130,000 in 2010. The key itself that caused all this ruckus, the guy found in his suitcase the next day or whatever. And he didn't take it on purpose, supposedly. It sold for $130,000. What a waste of money. How stupid. You weren't allowed off the ship. So once the Corinthian came by, I want to say it was the Californian, right? Once that ship saved everybody, you had to stay on the boat in the port. This is the stuff I think about. You're saved. You're finally saved. Now, I've seen this with, like, recently, in the last few years. Haven't you seen this? The COVID stuff especially. People being stuck on steamers for days, weeks, whatever. No food, no, like, crap water in the hallways and stuff. Like, I can't even imagine. 40,000 people lined up to see who made it in Manhattan. So 40,000 people went to go see and collect people. When the ship left the actual dock, 100,000 went to see it off. Oh my gosh. 40,000 people came. If you lost your family, you'd have to get back on a boat and go back. Oh my gosh. If you didn't have family or friends in New York City, you could not get off that boat. Oh my gosh. Can you imagine? Can you imagine? That's why I like watching, like reading about little things here and there, because that's the stuff that really gets me. Like, if I got, like, stop it. If I get saved and I could see the shore right there and I could see people waving at me, you are not stopping me. I am jumping off that boat. I will jump off that boat. I've already been in the middle of the ocean and jumped off a boat. I will jump off this boat too. So see, if I was on board, we would have solved two problems right there. I would have busted that thing up and got that key out. Or forget the key, like, I'm going to get all the binoculars out. But also, my gosh, you tell me I can't get off that boat. They said that, remember when I told you about the, what is it? I don't want to say the name wrong. Of the boat that died in North Carolina, Sewell, Sewol. The reason why most of the people died is because they listened to what they were told, and they were told stay in your cabins. Even when the cabins filled with water, they still stayed in their cabins. The people that didn't listen and went to the top upper decks lived. It's a weird situation, isn't it? I'm sure there absolutely a lot of times you could tell, like, you have to listen, you have to do stuff a certain way, you just have to. But my goodness, if it's obviously stupid. It's like if the building's on fire and you're hearing the bells and you hear over the loudspeaker, stay in your room, stay in your room. It's not safe, it's not safe, it's not. Would you leave? I would leave. I would not stay in my room, especially in a hotel room or something like that, you know, in situations like 9/11, were people told to stay or were people like, get out of here? I think a lot of that stuff also was one of those things, just like with this. Even when people heard it, even when people knew that they were attacked or the ship was wrecked or the building's attacked, no one left because no one really thought anything's going to happen. What's that about? You know, we really need to start trusting our own instincts with these things. We really need to start trusting our instincts. That's a real bummer. Starlight offices were rushed with people. Starlight Cruises is what did this. Selfishness was displayed on people when they were jumping off the boat. It was being plundered. They were screaming. And people were hoarding blankets, even on the lifeboats themselves. There's a story of a man who insists on grabbing up all the blankets and making himself warm when there were like 19 people over there with no blankets. So, once again, mankind. And then I think to myself, is it mankind? Or is it nature? And then I think to myself, nature itself is what it is. If you had a group of animals that we can say, we ourselves are animals too, so a lot of us take that out of the play, but it's true. If you took a group of birds or a group of any other animals, you'll see the same reactions, wouldn't you? But the fact that we have our own mentality of knowing right from wrong, that's where it's wrong. It really is. You'll see some animals, like a cat, will take a sick one and put it over there for it to die. Or it'll see a sick animal and pick it up and take it in. So you don't know. You'll see that with all the animal species. It's very strange. I always wonder about that. I wanted to tell you. One species of something that it's very neat. I hope I didn't get rid of it because I thought it was really neat. Oh, shit. I did. I got rid of it. The painted turtle. Let me see. I put it on my Facebook page. If you ever want to look me up on Facebook, I'm just Amy Lee. A-M-Y-L-E-E. The painted box turtle. The northernmost turtle. The the body, okay, so they're hatched in autumn, so like fall, they're hatched. Then it snows. They actually, their heart stops and only their brain stays on just a little bit. So basically they're dead. Their hearts have stopped, only their brains have remained active, and even then, only faintly. Painted turtles wait underground for the most important of moments, the arrival of spring. That's funny. Is it? In April, the strengthening sunshine triggers a miraculous transformation. I'm reading this, so I apologize for the gaps. I apologize. The turtles' body temperatures rise just above freezing, and their hearts start to beat once more. Slowly, they return to life. You always got to think of Jurassic Park, right? Life, it finds a way. That was oddly erotic, though, with freaking Goldblum, that water. And he's like, see? Goes a different way. She's like, and I was like, that's Stevie. I gotta watch it with this tea. I almost peed my pants. I had to get up. I'm not gonna even sugarcoat this. I threw everything. The phone that I record these on fell. The computer and the TV stand I keep things on. I mean, I don't know if it's because I'm older. I had cancer, both. What? My goodness gracious. As soon as I realize I've got to pee, I gotta go. I'm gonna ask you this. If you are in a lifeboat and you just had 11-course meal, my stomach gets upset when I'm anxious. I can't even imagine how sick I'd be. How many people poop their pants in those boats? Would you jump in the water? Your stomach's upset, you gotta go poo? How many people pooed in those boats? How many people yacked in those boats? It's nuts. Most boats had a real shipmate in charge on the lifeboats. After all the boats were saved, they turned back to only find one body floating in the water. So, that's interesting. So, rescuers recovered the clothes. This is interesting. So, the people that recovered the dead bodies, they burned most of the clothing because people were selling as souvenirs the clothing of the people that were killed in the water. So think about that. Now, we have all Facebook and YouTube and social medias and platform on platform on platform. It's scandalous. That was very scandalous. That is very scandalous. Who come up with that idea to go to the morgue and be like, hey, anybody wearing some plaid shirts and tuxedos, sign me up. I'm going to take that stuff and go sell it on the streets. Are you serious? Somebody did that. There had to be enough people that wanted to steal and buy the clothes of the deceased from the Titanic that they actually had to burn the clothes so nobody would do that. I don't even know what the point of any of it is. I mean, what's the even point of burning the clothes at that point? If somebody's so stupid that they want to buy the clothes of dead people, then so be it. I don't know. I cannot stand anybody anymore. I really can't. I get so disgusted every time I think about this stuff. So between 1 a.m. and 4:30, they rode alone in the ocean, and at the Carpathia came and got everybody. When the ship was going down, they were saying that It was so insane, the sounds. So let's think about that. Think about that. You've got steel bending, breaking, and flying. The bolts and all that stuff flying. Plates. Cars. Whatever else they were bringing with them. Beds, all this. All of it. Think how many things were on there. Like I told you, they had all those beers and wines and stuff for the first class passengers. The first class passengers' last meal was 11 courses. There's so much stuff. When you look at the pictures, you can actually see the plates still look good. And they're how low in the ocean. That everything on there was so exorbitantly decadent. It's just like begging for problems. It really is. And when they made that submersible, which we're going to discuss too, when they did that, the people that had anybody that was ever died on there were like, please don't do that. That is a gravesite. Please don't go down to my father's grave. You know, what the heck? Nobody's respectful. I get it that you want to, I mean, you could be respectful and curious and go see, but when we talk about the Titan, which we will soon here, that whole situation is just disgusting. It's a disgusting money grab. I don't like it. It had nothing to do with research at a certain point. With him. The main man. Anyway, that's crazy. A lot of the lifeboats wouldn't turn around. Ones that did would go. Okay, so like we were saying, a lot of people didn't get on the lifeboats at first. The captain himself didn't order anybody to get into the lifeboats because he was waiting for rescue ships. Nobody really thought anything was actually happening until the shit hit the fan. Then everybody had 20 minutes to hustle or something crazy like that. And then, so even when the first people were getting in the boats, nobody filled them. Nobody took anything seriously. Nobody took anything seriously. And even if they put the correct amount of boats on there, it would still only be 50% of the people. So there would never, ever be enough lifeboats for anybody anyway. But the lifeboats took a third of the people. And there was a lot of, like, fights, too. So you're hearing the sounds of screaming. You're hearing children crying for parents, mothers, husbands ripped apart. There had to be physical fights. People are stealing things. People are arguing over things. People are screaming at each other to get in the boats, not to get in the boats. There was a real big thing about men before women. The men that would get in the boats would either be dragged out and beaten and thrown in the water or something. The men and boys that got in the boats, if they weren't dragged out, there was a good reason. Even the young boys like 11 years old, a lot of people getting separated. What sometimes would happen is the women would put like a blanket over them or a scarf or something to make them look like a girl because they were giving these boys a hard time getting on the ships to save themselves. They were little boys. Just because you have a dong don't mean you can't live long. You know what I'm saying? So the lifeboats themselves, once they were, even the people who tried to help somebody, which some of them did not. You know, they might die going to get help for somebody helping somebody else. I mean, I'm sure somebody was like, that ship's big, it's going to drag us all down, get the hell back, you know what I'm saying? So there was a lot of different emotions. So they said that the lifeboats that did go to try to help somebody, once that ship went down, it was pitch dark because the men in the engineer room were keeping the lights on with the coal. Once that went down, it's pitch black out. So they would hear yelps and screams and cries. And the lifeboat would make its way over. These aren't small boats, 63, 65 people boats. They're pretty big. Once they get there, there's silence. And then they don't see or hear anything. And then they hear a scream over here. Turn around, go back that way. Get there, nobody's there. So it was almost fruitless to even do that. The temperature of the water, you'd only last about 20 minutes. Like I said, that drunk botch baker was just because he's pickled. So that's a crazy factola. I love these deets. I think deets are cool. Here's a useless fact. A nice deet for you. I'm just throwing in there for you Game of Thrones lovers. The Game of Thrones was taped and filmed at the Titanic Studios. They call it the Titanic Studios because it's situated in the Belfast shipyards that created the Titanic ship itself. You got it, you got it, you got it, you got it, you got it. So they said the last sounds were, the noise was immense. It was very loud. You could hear furniture breaking, the ship breaking, screaming, rushing water, people standing on rails. And it was a small suction, so it wasn't crazy suction as people would jump from the railings at the last minute. No one believed it would go down. All right. A New York couple, here's another fun deed. That submersible that went down, it wasn't the first time. There's been many voyages. I'll tell you about it in a minute. A couple went down in a submersible and got married on the bow of the ship in the submersible. Like little weirdo submersibles. How much money do you have that you say, I want to get married too? You want to get married? You want to marry me? Let's go down the ocean. Let's head on down to that graveyard. Maybe we'll see a skeleton. Nothing says romance like the Titanic. What the heck? What are people talking about? How much money do you have that you say, I want to go with you down to the depths of the bottom of the sea and get married on the bow of the Titanic? New York people, that's you. New York. Doggone it. That is some New York stuff if ever I heard it. Yeah, people went to bed. Some men were grabbed down the boats, even the teenagers. Here's a neat deed. Tennis players Dick Williams and Carl Burr, B-E-H-R, survivors, became teammates on the U.S. Davis Cup team. So they both lived through the wreckage and all that crap and ended up becoming teammates. That's pretty neat. The last lifeboat found almost a month later had 3 rotting bodies in it. Oh, that's a fun date. 2:20 a.m. The whole ship was below. And 20 minutes later, dead silence for 45 minutes. No desperate yells, no nothing. That's so crazy. All these deets on this thing. I don't know why I went backward on all my deets, but I did. I had so many other deets before these deets. I have like a death grip. Unless I'm like, "Argh!" Like I can't hold a cap or something. I'll put a cap in your butt. Butt caps. Doggone it. All right. So, the man that did all those corrections and changed everything in so many selfish ways, Bruce Ismay, he was considered the biggest coward in the 20th century. He lived till he was like 87, I think. He also saved himself. Yeah, he was on a ship. He lived. He had a boat. He's the man that made the decisions that we don't need all these boats. You know, snakes in a plane? No, it's similar, but with safety boats. We don't need none of these safety boats on this here Titanic. They had the stuff made for it. It was ready. All they had to do was put the boats on there. That's all they had to do. He goes, no, I want a bigger staircase to screw those boats. Are you serious? Get the hell out of here. Man, oh man, oh man. That is annoying. Southampton, England to New York. That's all they wanted to do. April 10th, 1912. The class system ways were so opulent. There were kennels. There was an actual kennel for first-class dogs. Extensive paintings, a gymnasium, a squash court, exquisite foods, an onboard newspaper that was delivered every day just about their voyage in the passengers. There was a Turkish bath, which still exists, and it's in very good shape, actually. It'll probably outlive everything, the Turkish bath. I think it's beautiful. And the first ever in-boat swimming pool, which, like I said, was right above the coal room. Many, many telegraph warnings in the 4 days of ice sightings, of ice fields. They call it an ice field. My goodness. Can you imagine? These rich people were so happy about what they were doing. Not only that, but yeah, they were sending messages, but messages were being sent too. So like if somebody, there was a lot of couples on this boat. I've got deets on that, but you know, I'm having a baby, or I was going to go, but I missed the boat. So there's a lot of that going on too. So there's a lot of stuff and a lot of deets like jilted lovers and weird stuff. So the first class passengers are like, take this, take this, take this, take. I can't even imagine. I did not look up the number, but I cannot. I think it's definitely in the hundreds. I'd be surprised if it wasn't in the thousands of messages, wireless messages, those two guys had to send. And the fact that they got paid per message from the first class really is irritating. And that's why they didn't pay attention to the other messages. So let's just get a little higher. Let's just really think here. We're not going to use still. Where's the rut? Dog got it. Not nails. Rosie the riveters. We're not going to use steel riveters. We're going to use an iron compound. And we're going to blow out all these steel panels, and don't worry about it. They don't need to be held together because we got this fabulous staircase. We don't want the boats. Why don't we want the boats, Ismay? Because people don't pay to look at boats. They want to be able to see the ocean. They don't want to look at that lifeboat. And that's why he didn't want lifeboats. You gotta be kidding me. You gotta be kidding me. So many telegraph warnings. He tells a Carpathia or whatever to shut up. Be like Facebook messaging. 10 miles south of the ice voyage, or the ice field, the voyage changed. So the track was getting out of course for many, many reasons. Obviously the ship's not operating correctly because the rivets are off. The weather's pattern's different. The moon was in line with Venus. The moon was in a spot that it hadn't been since the BC time, so the waves were different. We got a captain driving a ship that he has zero experience on. And all the millionaires are on it because he's the captain. He's a power ship captain, not a steamship captain. So he had zero experience. It's a perfect storm. Some of the foods. This is a fun deep. Some of the foods were curry chicken, baked fish, spring lamb, roast turkey, and pudding. Yeah, there was pudding. You know, I'd be like, I'll take that. You guys got mashed potatoes? I'll take the mashed potatoes in the pudding and some lamb gravy. That's what I want. That's all I want. That's all I want. I don't mind busting up a cabinet, but give me some gravy right now, I tell you. So, broke 6 of 10 of the watertight hulls. So the water filled 6 of 10 of the hulls, 300 feet. What am I talking about? Negative 28 degree water. 32-year-old vet, E.J. Smith's last voyage, accident-free career. So the man that was gonna do it didn't, and Smith himself, I'm sorry. It's just dawned on me what I was yakking about. I'm looking at the deets and I got confused, doggone it. That's my problem. All right. So in 32 years, his power ship captain never had one accident. He takes the last voyage. He was retiring after this. He takes the last voyage and he sinks the ship. Doesn't let people get in lifeboats because the other boats aren't here. So let's talk about the millionaires for a second. So Strauss was there, as in Strauss's department stores. Guggenheim. Astor. Guggenheim as in the famous art Guggenheim, the Guggenheim, but I think he was an entrepreneur and did some other stuff. That's not his jam, that's his family's. And then Astor of the Waldorf Astoria hotels. I like Astor's story. Guggenheim and Astor both have cool stories. I feel like it was Astor that said, by the way, he was like a beyond your wildest dreams million bajillionaire. He said, okay, we're going down. Him and his valet changed their clothes, took off their life vests, put on tuxedos, got some brandy and cigars, and sat out on the deck and said, hell, we're going down looking good. We're going to have a good time. And I think he also said something to the fact of, I said I'd like some ice. This is ridiculous. So hit the thing, you know. And I think it was the Guggenheims that refused to leave each other because she wouldn't leave him because they wouldn't let him on the boat, lifeboat, so they drowned together. They'd show that in the Titanic movie. The two old couple on the bed, that's them. Astor, seen in the water. First funeral collapsed. He had $2,800 of cash in his pocket. What a class act, that guy. I like that Astor. How crazy is it? And like I said, that murder on the ship, he killed his wife. He ends up dying. So it was a 70-foot drop to the water. Man, oh man, oh man. A 70-foot drop to the water from the top. Would that break your legs? How would you just go straight down? How deep would you go into the water and it's that cold? Can you imagine how that would take your breath away? With that situation, I wonder, I'd be afraid to jump too late because of the suction, but I wouldn't want to jump too early either. 70-foot drop, my God. So the actual iceberg, the glacier, was made in 1000 BC. So isn't that interesting? Another interesting part about the iceberg, it broke off of that 1000 BC glacier at the same time that they created the actual ship. And it traveled around. They actually have like ice travel, like glacier, iceberg travel patterns. And there's a specific agency that just watches the travel patterns of icebergs. That's it. That's what they do. And they were created because of this tragedy. So I think that's very interesting. And they said that it actually broke off around the day or so that the ship was started production. And then it landed where it was out of fluke reasons because it was going faster than it would have because of the winds. It's just so weird. It's almost like you couldn't avoid it. They couldn't have avoided it. It seemed like everything that could have gone wrong down to the very studs. People were reluctant to get into the lifeboats. There was a lot of running, yelling, and crying. Yeah, the older survivor, Millie, was 98 years old. Children separated from their mothers, wives, husbands, 400 tons of water flooding compartments a minute. Wow. Think about that. 400 tons a minute. Remember, there was 600 tons of coal being distributed into the ovens per 24 hours. Numbers. And like I said, they said 3 dogs survived, but I think there are only 2 dogs survived, a Pomeranian and a Pekingese. And the cats got off the port before. In fact, the reason why I know that is because one of the guys that got off the boat at that time, they noticed that cat because they were screwing with the cat the whole time. When you work on these boats, sometimes you might get off at a port and work at another boat. And that's what this man noticed because he was only with the Titanic for a few days. They made a few stops. And on one of the last stop they made, the cats and the rats got off. And this guy got off because he had another job. And he's like, what the heck is that cat doing here? What is happening? And like I said, the pictures are different of the dogs. It's not pit bulls and bulldogs. They didn't fill the boats all the way. There were language barriers as well. So if you're going cabin to cabin to cabin trying to tell people to get out, the ship's going down, they said because of the communication too. So a lot of people couldn't talk to one another. Basically, I'll tell you what, I don't care if a Japanese man, a Russian man, a flippin' Arab shows up at my door. If I see them going like this, like we're all gonna die type of situation, I'm gonna go, okay, if they're pointing to my stuff and going like this, I get it. I don't need to be like, hello, good man. Like, I don't need that. You're telling me that we're all gonna drown, blah, blah. I'm out. I should have been on the Titanic. At least I could have busted open that doggone, how stupid. Out of all the things. Oh, we don't have the keys, so we're not going to get the binoculars. Here they are, right there in the cabinet. You believe that? Now go stand in the crow's nest and let your eyes freeze so nobody can see, and then we can all die. Inconvenient passageways for the lifeboats to the lower classes. A first class ticket was $4,350. So that was 1912. That's equivalent to $69,600 today. Would you pay that for a ticket? I'd have to say yes, because these assholes are paying for a lot of stupid stuff nowadays. The key alone went for $130,000. Stupid. The women and children got corralled into a big dining room, ballroom situation when it first hit. So even if they did try to collect everybody, like I said, nobody did anything. It took 20 minutes to check all the other places. And I think they specifically locked gates of the third pet. It's just so bizarre. Every time I think about it, I'm like, wow. So when they did shove people to the boats, kids did get separated. And a lot of times, if the men had the kids, they were shoving them over each other's heads to go throw them in a boat. So it was chaos. Everybody screaming, the cold air, all of it. Go throw on all your clothes. We're going to go get in a boat. The quartermaster was jailed for hitting the iceberg. The quartermaster. Not the guy that made not the rich man who made all the decisions to make money and let everybody die because he wants a pretty staircase. You idiot. Yeah, there's some neat stories. Here's a story about a guy. He stole the kid. He had two small children. They were twins. These boys. He stole them. The boys got passed into the safety boats, and he went down with the ship. And then the mother read a French newspaper and realized those are her sons. So when the man tells the story, he says, I remember my dad saying to me, take your anxiety and your love, or something like that, like a weird saying, and give it to your mother. And he's like, and it always stuck with me. I think he was 2. What are you talking about? Yeah, Captain Smith. He also said he remembers the splashes and the anxiety. He was 2. He remembers the splashes and the anxiety. He was that small. If you ever saw the pictures of the 2 little boys, that's who I'm talking about. There's 2 little boys that they called them the Titanic orphans. Guggenheim. Oh, it was Guggenheim that says we're going to go down to the see, I thought, okay, see, now I messed up my deets. Guggenheim and his valet got dressed and said, we're going down as gentlemen, but I swear to God I saw it said Astor too, because I remember thinking that's funny, because he also said, I asked for ice for my drink, this is ridiculous. And then Strauss refused to leave the husband, and they drowned together. So it was Strauss. I apologize. That sucks. I hate that when I make mistakes like that. That's so dumb. I knew these deets were in here. So it was supposed to, originally it was supposed to be voyaged in March, but it did not voyage and leave until April. I wonder a lot about that too, because it's kind of like iceberg month, they said. Iceberg month is April. The iceberg itself was 18 months old from the glacier. That's so crazy. Staircase compromises the halls. Lowered the buckheads. That's what's called the buckheads. It keeps all the water from going over and making the water compartments safe buckheads. Icebergs are tracked yearly. I'm sorry. He was called the millionaire's captain. So like I said, every millionaire on there was only on there because of the captain. Here's a neat deed. Out of the things that they found floating around, they found mortuary bags. Because they had mortuary bags on the ship in case somebody died. So nuts. The last minute crew changes were due to the Olympic repairs. So there was a change to the crew at the last minute that is very similar to the Soho ship in North Korea in 2014. There was last minute changes. Once again, last minute changes. 26 people aboard were honeymooners. Isn't that fun? Japanese survivor was socially shamed when he came home. So this Japanese man, I don't know very much about Asian culture, but I do know that respect is very, very, very important, and so is your people's perception of you. Word of mouth there is excessively important. If you have a bad, you're bad company, you got a bad reputation, you will be ostracized. He was ostracized. So he lived through it. I know his name and stuff, but here's the thing. Why name his name after all this time? The man lived and then came home and was shamed and ostracized because he's a man. That's it. That's it. Because he was a man, he had no right to live. Until every woman and child was saved on that boat. looking for growlers. That's a term they use. Growlers are small icebergs. The sea was flat and calm, luminous. They called it a luminous night. The sea temperature was minus 2 degrees Celsius. Few lived longer than 15 minutes. 1 in 15 would have died from cold shock, they called it. 1 in 15 people would have died within the first 20 minutes. Steel is stronger than iron, and the rivets were made of an iron hand, put in by hand. Every engineer went down with their boats. The steel plates, 5 millimeters, would cause failure with the iron. Yeah, so even if it was 5 millimeters thick, it would have been failing. And these were 1.5 inches thick of steel plates. So if it was 5 millimeters thick, the rivets they used, it would have broke. And they still use them all on this. And they put them in by hand. What if you were one of the workers? And you know that if you're one of these men, you know about everything that's going on. Go put these rivets in here. Hey man, these are like an iron compound. That's not going to make any sense. Just do it. How much would your hands hurt too? Think about screwing in those little rivets. I don't think they'd have electrical drills, would they? Not for everybody, that's for sure. I was a riveter myself. I used a drill. And my hand hurt, and I used a drill. I wasn't putting them in little by little. I mean, I wasn't putting them in like, meow, meow, meow. International Ice Patrol was set up after that Titanic to look for the growlers, the little icebergs. They had lifeboat drills, and they were canceled. So they could have done lifeboat drills like 2 hours before all this crap happened. I think it was supposed to be at like 7 p.m. or something like that. And they did not do the lifeboat drills. He said this could have been averted, but even if they did it would have been more organized. But truly, would they be doing the drills how long would it take to make that many people? 337 bodies were recovered. No radar, ice warnings, a crow's nest. When the people were brought to New York with the dead bodies, they took them and distributed them to 3 cemeteries. But if I'm not mistaken, it read like that they were distributed in 3 New York cemeteries. But then I read more. And most of those people are put in Belfast, if I'm not mistaken. No binoculars distributed. Interior loosely set on the Ritz Hotel. The Ritz Hotel in London, not New York, United States. Church services. He got another ice warning. And he said, don't worry about it. I'm going to go do this church service. And he gave a sermon. The captain knew another ice warning was coming. Because he gets that special envelope with the captain moniker on it. And that's how he knew. It was delivered to him by hand. He said, forget that safety boat stuff. We're not going to do that. And it's 4th day, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to go do this here sermon. How crazy is that? That is so crazy. That is so crazy. There was the newest museum for the Titanic is in Belfast. Belfast is in Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. Only senior bridge officers had binoculars. Only 1/8 of an iceberg is above the ice. And every year, Titanic wreaths are put out by oceanographers. So 5 out of 6 warnings were given to the captain, and it still drove full steam, recommended by the owner, Ismay, who saved himself. 700 in lifeboats, 3 hours to sink. 4 days into the trip, 1,500 dead. The engineers all died operating the lights with coal. The California found bodies and debris the very next day. Cost 700 million or 7 million to create and make the Titanic. There was one black man above the Titanic, and he died. He saved his kids. He was an engineer. There was only one black person. The black man was married. His wife was pregnant, and they had some children. He was a very intelligent man. Because of the racism, he had a problem, so he wanted to go to the United States. That itself is crazy. So he actually died and drowned, but he saved his wife and his children. That's pretty cool. She gave birth to a son and named it after him. 9 steel decks. It was 4 city blocks long and 11 stories high. 820-ton songs of coal a day. That's interesting, because I just read somewhere else it was 600. Capable of 48 in a lifeboat. I read somewhere else it was 68. But I did want to point out, though, before I start talking about the Titan, the YouTube video on the flashback video channel, Titanic Survivor Stories. You gotta watch it just to watch these broads. And I say this because one was really a broad. She was like, what? No, it was loud as hell. Everybody was yelling and shouting and no one knew what the hell. We all heard that crash. It was like, yeah, it was so loud. And she's like doing all that. I have seen so many people say nobody heard anything. This lady survived. She goes, no, we all heard it. It was crazy. Girl, you were like 3 years old. But, you know, seriously, the 2-year-old remembered it. How old are you when you... Well, it was traumatic, too. But then there was this lady, old English lady, and she's like, oh, it was the most dreadful sound of people drowning. Oh. My mother had a premonition, and she didn't come. Once I was in the lifeboat, I realized her premonition was correct. Really, bitch? All right. There's all my Titanic deets. Now, let's talk about the Titan. One thing I want to tell you that's interesting about the Titan, name itself. What was it? How many years before? I think I got this in my deets here about the book. There was a book called The Titan. It was released years before the Titanic ever was even made. It had so many similarities down to, let me look it up real quick. Down to, wait, stop talking, just look it up. The book, The Titan, by Morgan Robertson. How did I do that? How similar are the Titanic and the Titan? Similarities in size, 800 foot. The Titanic was 800 foot long for the Titan versus 882 for the Titanic, it said. Oh, the Titan in the book was 800. The Titanic was 882. After sinking, some people said it was so unbelievable it was like clairvoyance. Was there a book written about the Titanic before it sank? It's called A Futility. 14 years before the Titanic sank, eerie simulations. Was the Titanic named after the Titan? The Titanic derives from Titans of Greek mythology. So that's where that came from. So no, they didn't name the Titanic after the book The Titan. They didn't do that. But it's very strange because if you'll ever see anything about the Titanic and the submersible, the Titan, it's very easy to get confused with this book because the book, and the book, The Titan, actual book was called Futility, or The Wreck of the Titan. So if you look that up, Futility, The Wreck of the Titan. It's on Amazon, $14. Could get it at Walmart for $5.88. Ain't that something? What the heck's with that? What the heck's with that? So for this man who created this submersible, they call it. It's not a submarine, but I'm going to call it a sub while we're talking about it because I can't pronounce that other word. For him to even call it Titan is laughing in the face of everything. Everything. Okay. So 5 people were in the Titan submersible. They all had instant deaths, just so you know. There was 96 hours of oxygen, 5 active investigations. Remember, for the rules you break. Okay, so the guy who invented this particular thing, what he did, one of the things he said in an interview is the most amazing people that ever changed anything about anything were remembered for the mistakes they made, because their mistakes were so fantastic that they were actually breakthroughs. Remember for the rules you break, he said. That's what he said. You remembers for the rules you break. So here's the thing with that. The rules you break, the reason why he's saying that is because every single person in the oceanic world who is a professional told him, please don't do carbon fiber. It will implode. You cannot do that. He didn't listen. The reason why the wreck exists is because it's made of steel. It's steel. That's why it still exists. It's not carbon fiber. They don't make carbon ships. They make carbon airplanes because it's a light material. You need a heavier material in the water because of the poundage and that pressure. You can't have that kind of a situation. Someone will say, well, you take an inch of carbon fiber, you can pull a whole car. Okay, but you couldn't even push an egg with it, though, because it's going to crumple up. It's small. It's good with pulling, but not pushing. When you're in the ocean's pushing. The ocean doesn't need to pull it. The ocean's going to push down on it. People actually, a lot of people got together. Someone even sued him and everything, saying, stop this. They gave him a certified letter from all the heads of the nation saying, stop it. Please don't do this. Please, please, please don't do this. He brought out a Game Boy operate, like a little tiny Game Boy thing, like not Game Boy, doggone it, like a remote control for like a Nintendo. He's like, look, this goes this way, push it this way, push it this way, push it. When you look at it, you're like, holy crap, that's ingenious. Of course, why wouldn't that work? What's the big deal? It's a crappy little remote. That's a big deal for one thing, because you're going so far below that nobody should ever go. And you know that. And you're still doing it. It's a crappy game controller and touch screens, and he thinks it's a good idea. When this happened, James Cameron, the man who made the Titanic movie, wrote it. He's been obsessed with Titanic for years. One of his best friends were on it. He did an interview on Australia 60 Minutes. If you've never watched Australia 60 Minutes, you should. It's fantastic. It's one of my favorite shows ever, and they have really good murder stuff. Whoa, you wouldn't believe it. Oh, and you know what else is on 60 Minutes Australia? I just had the name and it popped in my head and popped out. Ooh, remember this story about the guy that was a doctor and he made up that fake throat thing and stuff? He was also doing something else, like making somebody else get married to him too. That story's on there. It's amazing. It's amazing. It's amazing. All right, so the Ocean Gate expeditions. It does remind me of Jurassic Park. So 5 people were in the Titan that imploded that day. And one of them was James Cameron's best friend. And his best friend was a professional diver. Good man, intelligent man. And to him, this was research and fascination, and he loved it so very much. But James was like, cut the crap, you're going to die. Like, cut it out. Don't go down there, please, I'm begging you. So he was there, a billionaire. So Paul Henry is James' best friend. They call him PH. And then, 3 other people, and the man that invented this. Oh, okay. Oh, the Futility book, 1898, 14 years before the disaster. Yeah. The Titanic. Okay, so I got a bunch of deets on here from other stuff. Okay, so this guy, also the man that created this whole situation of the Titan, he goes by the name Stockton. I think his real name's Richard, but his actual wife, Stockton, sounds hoity-toity, doesn't it? His wife, she had relatives that died on the Titanic, so that's really weird that he did that. 40 to 50,000 dives a year, 40 years, 1975, not one fatality until this happened, so. Okay, so. Yeah, because I was really thinking, if you were on the Titanic, wouldn't you really get upset? Mine would. I would just be like, what the heck? All right, an imploded submersible, deep sea pressure. James Cameron offered help to the Coast Guard, and they were like, stop talking to us right now. So for days, sonar equipment said that there was banging and tapping noises, and those were the people trying to help. It wasn't. It was either another ship or an ocean or something. It could be anything. At 9:25 a.m., it was confirmed. No, I'm not going to say a.m. because now I'm not sure. 9:25, James Cameron, creator of the Titanic movie, obsessed with Titanic. His best friend PH is on the in the submersible. He gets a message from the naval, very high up naval command, letting him know that there was an implosion where his friend is. So people knew. People knew. Even people knew about the Titanic like 2 days before the other people knew. 12,500 feet is about 4 kilometers below, which is where the Titanic is. 96 hours of oxygen. The Odysseus 6. So they had, once this happened, they put something, it's a robot that goes down in the water, and it was called the Odysseus 6, like the Odyssey, Odyssey 6 or whatever they call it. And that's a kind of a robot they were going to send down, they were going to tow it up. Bring everybody to safety, supposedly. No one disclosed naval intelligence. Inconclusive. No tangible evidence. So the Coast Guard still looked because they did a search and rescue because there was still no tangible evidence that these people were dead. There were already 90 dives. This already happened 90 times. And 13 times it was successful. So one of those times, those people from New York got married on the boat. You had to sign a waiver with the North Atlantic Oceanic Society or whatever the hell they called themselves that did this a waiver saying that you don't want your money back and you accepted that you might not get to see the Titanic because of all these conditions. The CEO, Stockton Rush, he was in the sub. Wow, Stockton Rush, what a name. Richard Stockton Rush, Ocean Gate CEO. His father was an explorer. Impunity, 15 years experience. Open ignoring of open advice. A world letter by all oceanic professionals wrote a letter to tell him to and explained all of his mistakes that he was making in a nice way, and he ignored it. So even though they all told him, listen, this is going to implode, it's going to be bad, please don't do that. Once there's 15 minutes of no communication with the submersible, they know that the shit hit the fan. So in a sub, that's the rule in a sub. So imagine the submersible, an hour and a half, nobody hears anything, and they're like, oh, let's send people, like, once you don't hear anything in 15 minutes, it's like the rule that it's bad. It's bad. So if you're going to make a sub, it have to be made of steel. Like I said, carbon fiber. A strand can pull a car, but it can't even push because it's like pushing with a rope. And you cannot, no push, the C pushes. 2/3 titanium, no corrosion. It's also more expensive, but it's lighter. Like they said, it has to be heavy. You can't have light things in a heavy pressure situation. PH would bring a styrofoam cup with him on every dive and sign it and date it because he thought it was so cool how the styrofoam cup would collapse. And he'd bring it back up with them and save those. Hostile environments. It was already a hostile environment. The way that the Titan was out on its like buoy type situation, sitting out where it was. Before the people got in, it was already had body damage of some sort. Basically, it was compromised because of the environment it was in already. So where it was sitting was odd. It was already damaged from the environment, the waves and the crashing and all that jazz. It was a bad idea to do it. They should have called it off that day is what they were saying. So 2 voyages. Why does it say 2 voyages when maybe it was just 2 voyages with the Titan because it said 13 out of 90 succeeded. So and it's an 8-hour trip. An hour and 45 minutes it takes to get down to the bottom. Wait, an hour and 45 minutes distress calls ignored. That's what it is. So it's an 8-hour trip. Doggone it. Who would want to do this? Who would want to do this? That's nuts. 11 years after the tragedy. What am I talking about? Think about that. He named something after a mythical ship that wrecked. He's told by everybody who knows anything, you're doing it wrong. Please don't do that, my God. Where is it that says how much a ticket was? Because I have that somewhere. It is crazy how much that ticket was. How much was that ticket? It's like $300,000 or somewhere around there. Instant death. I don't think I'd mind instant death. The one man had his teenage son with them, so they died together. It's weird that everybody knew that they were dead and they still kind of had to put on a show. I really want you to look up that other one, the Seoul tragedy in North Korea, because it's a lot like this too. There was changes at the last minute. The ship had been redone and compromised. It was the best seal was taken out and put in other things like cars and objects to make money on. These people were told on the Titan, don't do this. Don't do this. It's just such a shame that PH died because he seems so cool. And then the other people didn't need to die either. But it just goes to show that, you know, we all want it. We all want it. It's going to look, I don't even know how to say this right now. I really don't. The only thing I could say is greed. It's greed. You're driving down. It's one thing to explore the ocean. I get that. But why this boat over and over and over and over again? It has been doomed since it was made. The iceberg flipping was born when the first rivet went into it. So what are we doing here? How many people have to die? There was a book written about it 14 years before it even happened. Now we're going to name a submersible over, we're going to name it on the boat that wrecked and started this whole thing. Are you crazy? Like, how much ego do you have that you say, no, no, no. Not only am I going to do it, but now I'm going to charge you. And if you have enough money, you could come down with me. Why are you going down there? We've seen the pictures. We know what it looks like. Why are you going down there? What are you doing? And how dare him make a carbon fiber submersible with a joystick and put people in it and go to the bottom of the ocean like he's actually doing something. Okay? Remember, Richard Stockton Rush, you will be remembered for the rules you broke. You will.